Gåsehud is a Norwegian word.
He had a cool guitar. He was a natural star. He could play, he could sing. He had that country swing.
We got the chance to have a long conversation with Luther Russell. And he was incredibly generous with his knowledge to American music. So, man, I could listen to him for weeks. And also, what a guitar player, what a singer, what a singer-songwriter, what a character, Luther Russell. You will hear a lot from him, so go get goosebumps.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2. You've got your teacup all full of whiskey and coke, got your cigarettes, you've got some smoke. You've got your reasons, you've got your half-finished rhymes, got your quarters, your nickels and dimes. You've got your boy now, right by his throat, but he's just a toy now. You keep in your long full-length black leather coat, and you can do better than that. You've got some answers to all unposed questions, and you've got suggestions that nobody needs. And you've got your kisses, they're saved up like pennies, they're doled out like half-hearted or well-meant good deeds. You've got your rain clouds, you've got your storms, and you've got your contacts, and you've got your crumpled up, half-filled out phones. And you can do better than that. Your memories, they're all full of nightmares, but you've got them right there, just where they belong. And you've got your headaches, your heartaches, and your traumas, yeah, just the right dramas to fit the right song. You've got your loser to hang round your neck, but he's just a user, drawn like a scavenger to a train wreck. And you know that you can do so much better than that.
You come from an incredible composer family. your grandfather was a huge writer. He wrote for Duke Ellington.
Yep, a
Lyrics.
couple songs with Duke Ellington, and he was a lyricist.
Yeah.
He was a wordsmith, and my uncle was a wordsmith. And they, between the two of them, they wrote with so many composers, and they also were covered. You know, they were sung by everybody you could name.
Yeah.
Bing Crosby, all of them. This is an era of American music that's, I mean, it's basically lost.
Yeah.
Because it's pre-rock and roll.
Yeah. The craft is lost too, I guess.
The craft too, yeah. I mean, do you wonder why Bob Dylan right now is singing all those songs now instead?
Yeah.
Do you wonder? You know, because to him, I think in his own way, he's trying to keep it alive. Not just his childhood or whatever, but that era. I think those are his Bob Dylans.
Yeah.
Those songwriters, Irving Berlin and Cole Porter and you know, you could go on and on.
Yeah.
The Gershwins and
That's died out.
Yeah, but
craft.
it is in a way because of the way that it was founded and constructed. I mean, it was a job. You had a lyricist, you had a composer. Sometimes you had both, like in Cole Porter, but essentially you had these two components, and you know, like they wore their suits and, you know, to go write songs and sell them, and you know, and they didn't really sing them, except for like Hoagie Carmichael or something. You know, he sang his own songs sometimes, but generally they didn't sing them. They got great singers. Yeah.
Oh,
so, you get it. Bing
I have
Crosby.
such a romantic view that.
I do too.
I would love to be part of that kind of team.
Well, I think that's what Bob Dylan tried to do on the new record is record that way with one microphone and with distance and be part of a team that's making a record in that way. I mean, recording at Capitol where Frank Sinatra recorded, and you know, yeah, it's kind of a special thing that's a lost art form, and I listen to a lot of music from that era. Not so much the 40s, but I like a lot of the music from the 20s and 30s. That's my favorite, and the blues stuff too. The race, which were called race records then. Those are my favorite records from the 30s, and I like the pop music from the 20s. So, which would be more my uncle's era. My uncle wrote a song called "Alabama Bound," which is a big hit in 1925, and Al Jolson did it. So,
and I wrote that modern, kind of relatively modern hit. He ain't have it. My brother.
my grandfather, yes,
grandfather.
yes, that was his last song.
Was he quite old then when he did that?
No, he's 56. He wrote it right before he died.
Yeah.
Right before he died. Actually, it was a hit. He had just passed away. It was his last song. And it was a big hit for a lot of people, actually. It was weird. The Hollies, and then Neil Diamond had a hit with it, and Olivia Newton-John later, and the Osmonds, and Donny Hathaway did a great version of it. And I mean, then, you know, I think it was actually the Hollies version of that song was Elton John's first session. He played piano on it. I think it's the neighbors.
Wow. Okay. It's better.
Or maybe I think Sarah's asleep. But yeah, so that was I mean, honestly, I could talk about that era for hours. You know.
Maybe isn't Van Dyke Parks kind of a survivor from that kind of craft?
Yeah,
as a arranger.
I think so, or just as a historian, probably too. Just as someone who understands it and knows it. But yeah, even in his own craft, I think. I try to think now who's someone who really understood that. I think the closest we have to someone who's on the level, who was on the level of those songwriters is Randy Newman.
Yeah.
Randy Newman was the only person from the rock and roll generation who was, I think, on the level of, you know, the Gershwin and, you know, Hoagie Carmichael but you know that would make sense because he's from a family of composers.
Okay.
His uncles did a lot of the big movie soundtracks. The Lionel Newman, Alfred Newman, and there's another one too. Of the 40s and 30s. So he came from a bit of a lineage. But yeah, Randy Newman to me is, and I love Randy Newman's music.
Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, he's playing here in Los Angeles on October 3rd at UCLA.
Oh.
I've seen him twice. He's incredible.
Is he?
Oh, God. Randy Newman?
Huh?
You should take Mesa. You should seriously go see him at Royce Hall.
Is he great?
Yeah, he's probably one of the greatest songwriters whoever lived, I think. But yeah, and I think maybe if you're getting near the level of the craft of the songs of that era, you could maybe count like Harry Nilsson and maybe the Beatles. Some of the Beatles stuff was on the level of that song, right? Again, still, it's not the same thing.
No.
It's not the same thing because it's not made for the same reasons.
No.
You
Is
know?
it?
It's you know, World War II is kind of the dividing line. I mean, these were songs that for instance, some of these songs, the soldiers, it's all they had for a connection to home. You know, I think like a song, the number one.
I never thought about that.
Well, the number one song, I think, a favorite song of the soldiers, the number one favorite song of the soldiers was Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael. But the song that my grandfather wrote called Don't Get Around Much Anymore is probably the number two favorite song of the soldiers across the sea, overseas fighting. Because, for instance, Don't Get Around Much Anymore is all about, I heard you had a great dance and you had a great time, and the lyric is but I don't get around much anymore because I mean, they interpret it as because we're fighting. we can't go to the dance, you know. So I think that was
very interesting. I never thought about that.
Sure. I mean, I think besides a letter from home and a connection, all they had was the Armed Forces radio probably, and to hear a song like Stardust or in the, you know, any of those, they're nostalgic, and they're all about, and of course at a certain point during the war effort they would tailor the songs for they knew the soldiers were listening. So they would
Can I imagine?
they would say, you know, they would really pour it on thick and make it about home, and it was all romantic. And I would say the soldiers across the seas wanted nothing more than to be home with their sweethearts and their families and everything. So, and on top of that, this was the popular music. It was exciting. It was going on back home, and they were missing it. So that's why you can't compare the eras. Though, in a way, you can compare Vietnam. You know, because if you take certain songs, I mean, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother is inspired by, that's about, you know, that's inspired by war and carrying your brother, and so I think it did resonate in the Vietnam War because of that. You know, and it still does. It still does in a way. It's about you know, selflessness and you know, I mean, the sentiments in the song are it's something that I think we could use today. especially here in the country, you know. We don't care about the homeless. We don't care about the soldiers. We don't care about people who are poor. We don't care about people who are different than us. You know, there's, you know, it's important to have that sentiment in the air, you know what I mean? You know, but nothing's new.
Oh.
That's nothing new.
To get goosebumps, the smoother muscles has to be involved. And you can't control it. See you next time.